The last thing you'd expect to come with a price tag would be loyalty. Fortunately, these football players proved that for the right price, they'd be more than willing to leave the clubs that helped them break through the global stage. From leaving European super clubs in their prime to praying for a way back, here are three athletes who sold their souls for money, and look how they're dealing with the aftermath today. Oscar, the Brazilian player, was once headlined as the next Kaká, possibly surpassing his compatriot when it came to skill. You see, Oscar made a name for himself as a talented player long before he started his senior career. During the 2011 FIFA Under-20 World Cup, Oscar became the first player in history to score a hat trick. That's 3 goals in one game. Besides that amazing feat, he's also known for being the player who fumbled big time when he switched from Chelsea to Shanghai Port. So how did it all come about? His professional career got off to a rocky start with a contractual dispute with Sao Paulo FC. Oscar claimed that the club hadn't paid him the salary they'd promised, and as a result, he signed over to International FC. Ultimately, the player's agency settled with SPFC for €6 million. A small price to pay because ultimately, because of his stellar stats with International, he entered Di Matteo's radar. Yes, the former manager for Chelsea. Oscar's first starting match with Chelsea was back in 2012 against Juventus, a 2-2 draw. However, the Brazilian had scored both goals for his team and was ultimately the man of the match. Oscar was on a roll and continued to shine with Chelsea in both the Champions League and the Premier League. His goal against Juventus in 2013 was Chelsea's goal of the season. He continued to start in almost all of the club's games and ultimately held over 200 appearances for Chelsea. Truly, he honored Frank Lampard's number, the best anyone could have hoped. But where did it all go wrong? While Oscar was making strides in Europe, the Chinese Super League was kicking off in Asia. To bring themselves at par with Europe, the Chinese Super League was willing to spare no expense to get the absolute best of the best, and at the time, that was Oscar. To refresh for a moment, in 2012, Chelsea signed the Brazilian for approximately €25 million. In 2016, SIPG was willing to give Oscar 4 times that with €61 million. It was an offer he couldn't refuse, and he said as much during a press conference. China has incredible financial power and sometimes makes offers that players can't refuse. Now, with a weekly salary of €400,000, Oscar had just become the highest paid player in the world. He was still a great player, of course, and ultimately helped Spig win the CSL. This was enough for the Asian team to renew his contract in 2016 for another 5 years. Over the next couple of years, there'd been rumors that Oscar was unhappy living in China and wanted to return to Europe. To be fair, the player confirmed those rumors himself when he stated that, ultimately, he hoped to play for Chelsea again. This was the same Oscar who'd once played for Chelsea, helped them win countless times, and was one of the best players the club had ever seen. However, the fact that he gave up all of that for more money in China was enough to leave a bad taste in fans' mouths. They believed that he was a sellout and actively protested against him returning. To be fair, Chelsea hadn't asked him to return either. Oscar would continue to drop hints here and there, stating that he hoped for a return to Europe someday. Basically, he'd hoped that someone from Europe's leading clubs would call him back, offering more money. That never happened because, in the time that he'd been gone, there'd been many more Oscars to replace him. In the end, he did return to Brazil, and you wouldn't guess where he ended up. That's right, back to home base once again, Sao Paulo FC. His annual salary hasn't been disclosed, but it'd be fair to assume that the Brazilian club isn't paying him the millions that he was once used to. Hulk. They didn't call him Hulk for nothing. Born Givanildo Vieira de Sousa, but known professionally as Hulk, this Brazilian player dominated the scene with his incredibly athletic ability, his powerful left foot, and direct style. Back in the day, Hulk was Europe's rising star, with exceptional performances at FC Porto, where he won multiple league titles and Portugal's national trophies and secured his team's victory during the 2011 UEFA League. Hulk's skill wasn't limited to Europe, and the Brazilian player would go on to play a couple of seasons in Japan and then a few in Russia. While he was definitely a force to be reckoned with, fans were always on edge with him. They knew that Hulk would be the first one to leave if anyone offered him more money elsewhere. Interestingly, just like his compatriot Oscar, Hulk found his way into SIPG when the Chinese Super League was kicking off. He'd already received an estimated 60 million euros from the Russian league when he played for Zenit St. Petersburg in 2012. But SIPG was willing to offer him more, around 20 million euros a year. It was an offer he couldn't refuse, as one of the most expensive transfers in football history. You best believe he was on the next plane to Shanghai, but in hindsight, Hulk probably wishes he had never gotten on that plane. Why? It effectively ended his career in Europe. While he'd played for foreign clubs before, Hulk had maintained an interest in returning to Europe eventually. SIPG knew that and weren't about to let their star player go without a fight. Speaking of which, Hulk was part of Oscar's winning team when the SIPG won the Chinese Super League in 2018 and subsequently the Chinese FA Super Cup in 2019. You have to admit, though, that Asia isn't at par with Europe when it comes to football, and ultimately Hulk was dropped from the scene completely. Despite previously playing a key role in tournaments like the 2013 FIFA Confederations Cup and the 2014 FIFA World Cup, Hulk's place in the Brazilian national team disappeared. Unlike some players who returned to Europe after stints in China, Hulk never truly found his way back. He did leave SIPG in 2020 and went back to Brazil to play for Atlético Mineiro, but it wasn't the comeback you'd have expected from a player like him. Before he transferred to China, Hulk was being scouted by major European clubs, but no one was paying as much as SIPG. The Brazilian did make somewhat of a comeback with his new team, winning national leagues. However, his story remains a cautionary one. When you bounce from one club to another, exiting the European scene during your prime years, you won't have the same crowd waiting for you when you ultimately come back. Yannick Carrasco. Would you ever repeat the same mistake? Let's talk about Yannick Carrasco now, once slated as possibly the best player to ever come out of Belgium. The footballer started his professional career in Monaco, helping his team secure the Ligue 2 title in 2012. Yannick had always been a versatile player, playing as a left midfielder, left wing-back, left winger, or left back. Monaco fans adored him. After all, he was a young gun with a lot more potential to show. His peak did come, but it was when he was signed over to Atletico Madrid in 2015 for 20 million euros, making him one of the most expensive transfers in Monaco's history. With Madrid, Yannick went on to secure the club's 2016 Champions League win, scoring in the final against Real Madrid. He was also instrumental when it came to Madrid's 2018 UEFA Super Cup win, making him one of the club's elite players. At this time, Yannick was still only 24 years old, and many believed that he was yet to show his true potential. Unfortunately for him, no one really got to see much of it on the global stage. You see, in 2018, Yannick made the shocking decision to leave Madrid for Dalian Yifang in the Chinese Super League. Once again, the Chinese league was trying to bring themselves up to European standards and wanted only the best of the very best that Europe had to offer. Yannick wasn't the only one who was scouted, and we've already talked about Oscar and Hulk, who ultimately made the same decision to leave Europe for Asia. But you have to remember, there were other players as well who were offered the same amount of money or more to move, but they didn't take it. Why? They realized that a return to Europe would be nearly impossible. If you spend your peak years elsewhere, it's hard to get the same reception when you come back. By then, you've already been replaced by the next best player, and your legacy, that'd be your peak years, would have been spent in a lesser-known league. The payoff, according to the many football players who refused to move to China, just wasn't worth it. But for Yannick, it was worth the gamble. The Chinese club reportedly paid 30 million euros for him, and he was offered an enormous salary of 10 million euros per year, far beyond what Atletico or most European clubs would pay. It was a financially motivated move that took him away from the highest levels of football during what should have been his best years. Yannick realized what he'd done and forced a return to his former club in 2020. This was life giving him a second chance, and fans prayed that he wouldn't blow it. Ironically, he once again chased a paycheck in 2023 when he moved to Saudi Arabia to play for Al-Shabaab. The €15 million transfer was less than what would have once been offered for someone like Yannick Carrasco. But this wasn't the same player anymore. He was older, didn't have the technical skill, and spent the best years of his life playing for a lesser-known league. What do you think about these cautionary tales in football history? Let us know in the comments below, give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe for more.